What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pug Deep Dive. All right, so if you've had any time and experience as a web developer, you probably started with HTML, right? I know I did. I started when it was HTML 2.0. That gives you an idea of how old I am. I remember when I threw away that huge 3.2 book when 4.0 came out, and then 5 blew my mind, all right? So as we've been growing as web developers and as HTML has been growing, we've been using some very outdated tools to start off with, but the processes have been getting a lot better. Okay, as we grow, our tools grow. All right, so as a kid, you may play with that Fisher-Price screwdriver set, and then as you grow up into a teenager, your dad may have let you use real tools, and then you start using power tools, and everything, you know, the world just opens up. Well, it's similar to Pug and SAS and tools like that that allow us to take an outdated workflow and speed it up, right? So that's exactly what we're trying to do as developers. We're trying to improve our workflow. We're trying to write less code. We're trying to have our code do more with less effort. We're trying to work smarter and not harder, okay? So with Pug, what happens now for us is that instead of having to write closing and ending tags and all these other types of things, we get to write loops and we get to create LIs and unordered lists with just 2 lines of code. Common things that used to take us copying, pasting, and editing little small changes here and there. Now we can do that in simple lines of code. We can have variables, we can have all these types of things. And I'm gonna give you a little walkthrough of what Pug does for our workflow. And hopefully at the end of this, you'll be willing and ready and able to start adding Pug to your workflow. Without further ado, let's get started. All right, Pug, formerly known as Jade, doesn't need anything to be installed, which is pretty cool, right? All you need to do is end your file in .pug, and most of your modern editors like, Visual Studio Code, which I'm using here, Sublime, Atom, or any of those other ones, they'll recognize a .pug file, okay? Now a browser, on the other hand, still won't know what to do with it. And this is pretty obvious, right? It knows what to do with HTML, it knows what to do with CSS, it knows what to do with JavaScript, but it doesn't know what to do with a .pug file. So we're gonna help it out. We're gonna install a tool that will allow us to convert our .pug file into a .html file so that the browser, which is kind of stupid, will know what to do with it, all right? So let's do that. We're gonna go to prepros.io. And the coolest thing about Prepros is that they have an unlimited free trial, okay? Now it's $29, so it won't break you if you buy it, but still, anybody would like unlimited free stuff. All right, so let's download it here. All right, I'm downloading it to my desktop. I picked Mac OS because that's what I'm on. It's gonna download. I'm gonna open that bad boy up. It's gonna unarchive it. It's so small that I don't even need to do like one of those speed up videos to make the download happen in super fast speed. All right, so let's take it here. We're on our desktop. That's where I downloaded it. That's where it unarchived. All right, I'm gonna drag it over into applications, and now I've got Prepros installed. Okay, so I'm gonna do Prepros. There it is. I'm gonna open it up. Prepros, do you wanna open it? Just say yes. I promise you it won't destroy your machine. All right, and then we get a nice little dialogue here saying hi. Well, hello right back to you. Okay, so I'm gonna click browse. I want to go back to that desktop folder, and I'm going to add a project, but first I'm going to create a new folder, Pug Deep Dive, and I'll click that, click add project, and now it's going to sit there waiting for us to create new files. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go, well, you know what, something's pretty cool. Let me right click and show you this, right? So on that project folder, I can open it up in Visual Studio Code. So if you're using Visual Studio Code, all you have to do is right click and open it, and it will open up your directory, your project right there. And that's where I'm going to go in and create my index.pug. So look at that. Look at the little dog there, right? I think it's material icons on there. So it creates a little, little woofer there. Okay, so back to the editor. One is that we're going to start creating a little Pug code. We already have Emmet installed if you've installed Visual Studio Code or Atom. But if you don't have Emmet installed, I would highly suggest that you go and do it. Emmet makes things a lot easier when you're writing Pug code or HTML code. It's undescribable how much it benefits you as a developer, all right? So watch this. I'm just gonna hit this plus a tab, right? And that's what happened. I got like a fully formed Pug document right here. Now, we're gonna go through a little bit and talk about what this actually is, but all I had to do with Emmet was exclamation point and tab, and I've got this, okay? And it does the same thing with HTML, but that's pretty cool. So we've got our first Pug file, so let's talk a little bit more about it. All right, so we've got our basic doc type at the top, right? That's common standard HTML, but everything else looks a little bit similar to HTML, but also a little bit different. What we've got going on here is that we've got our HTML set at the same level as the doc type. Then we've got an indentation for the head and then another indentation for the meta tag. So our indentations tell us which tags need to be embedded into other tags. So everything inside of our head needs to be indented one level over to the right from our head tag. And then when we're ready to come back to a tag that's at the same level, the body, we bring the indentation back. So nothing will be on the same level as HTML. Everything will be at least to the right of head and at least to the right of body going forward. So that's how we handle letting the Pug compiler know that we want this to be embedded inside of it. So indentation is very important, just like Sass. Okay, what we're going to do now, we're going to make this a little bit more obvious. We're going to use Emmet. We're going to do div within h1, another h1, and we'll hit that. Okay, and then we'll do hello world. Before I forget, let me split this open so you can see what's happening on the other side. Preproce is over here in the background creating for us the HTML. So I'm not even having to create the HTML. Preproce is just saying, well, I'm going to do that for you. You keep writing your Pug code, I'll take care of the HTML. All right. And this is what we're getting over here. Right now, I don't know about you, but the one on the left hand looks a lot nicer than the one on the right hand. Right? It's just more readable. Okay, it looks a lot cleaner on the left-hand side. We've got our div, and we've got an H1 inside of it, right? And it closes the div because we told it to. And then we've got the H1 on the same level. So our greater than sign tells it to push it in. Our caret sign says pull it back. So we wanted that second H1 to be at the same level as the other div. Pretty cool on Emmet. I mean, that was nice. I didn't have to do all of this writing, closing, and ending tags. I think that was pretty sweet. We can also do inline nesting, okay? So let's try this. We're gonna try using Pug's colon operator, okay, to see if we can do that same thing, but with even more tags. Let's see, href equals nothing, and then we're gonna say colon. So I'm telling you, I want that nested, all right, inside of the button, and then I want nested inside of the button an image, okay? So let's see, we're gonna give it an alt, because you know I'm all about accessibility, right? Especially when I'm recording in front of you guys and I want to seem like I'm really good about this. So we've got now over to the right hand side, look at what we got. We got an href, we got an anchor tag with a button inside of it and the image inside of the button, and all of it wrapped up inside of the anchor tag. So that's pretty cool. We got inline nesting. We can use Emmet to nest. I mean, so far so good. I'm loving what I'm seeing so far. Hopefully you are too. All right, let's talk a little bit about classes and IDs. So we're constantly writing elements with classes and IDs. So it would be pretty important for a Pug compiler to be able to handle this, right? All right, so let's try that. All right, so we got an H1. Let's give it a class of title. And what do? We use the dot syntax. Should be very familiar, right? Title, and then we can chain important, alert. You can chain as many as you need. White warning. I don't know why any of this would make sense. Alert warning, but that's fine. But look what we've got. We've got H1 with a class of title, important, alert warning. All right, we can do the same thing with IDs. Okay, so let's do that. Content. Now it assumed, we didn't give it a tag, but it assumed that we wanted a div. Okay, and then we can even do this, right? So let's say we got content and we want to give it a class of title and warning. Now we've got the ID of content, but the class of title and warning. And you can chain, right? Single ID, but you can chain classes to your heart's content. I think that's pretty cool, right? It's a pretty simple and clean way of writing out your classes and inside of your tags. Now here's the part where we convert you JavaScript developers, okay? We're gonna talk about loops and variables. I know you're super excited to hear about that. Okay, so we're gonna use our inline nesting trick that we talked about before. And we're gonna use an each loop to create an unordered list, okay? So let's start it off. All right, we got our unordered list. We're gonna use our inline nesting tool. The colon says, hey, this next stuff is gonna be inside of here. All right, we're gonna do an each val in. All right, we're gonna create our array here of links. So we're gonna do home, and then let's see, I want to write a blog, and I want everybody to know about me, and then I want them to be able to contact me because my content is the best. So we're gonna indent that and say, give me an li for every one of those values. All right, I'm gonna hit save, and over to the right you see I've got my unordered list, right, with all of my elements in there. and they're all nested in because I use the inline nesting trick. So let's see what happens if we want to use this array in more than one place, okay? Because again, we're not the type that are going to, rewrite code, right? We're JavaScript developers. If you're a JavaScript developer, you don't want to rewrite code. And if you're a Pug developer, you don't want to rewrite code, all right? So let's do this. We're going to use the dash and click create a variable. We're going to call it links. We're going to set it equal to what we had up here before. And then down here, I'm just going to change that to links, and nothing should change on the right-hand side. And it doesn't. But now we've got this links array that we can use multiple places. Now, another thing that we can do, just like in the for each loop in JavaScript, okay, we can get the index of whatever item we're on at the current time. And then we can use interpolation to actually do something with that index. So let's try that. So we got our array up here. We got our each loop. So now we want to get not just the value, but the index. And we want to see what can we do with this index. Well, let's just use some interpolation. We're going to say index plus 1, right? Because the arrays are 0 based. I don't know, unless you're a VBScript developer. I used to be one, but don't tell anybody, okay? Where arrays are 1 based. So let's try that. Now we've got interpolation. We've index plus 1 plus we concatenate the colon, this string, the colon, and we concatenate the value. And now we got over here 1 colon home, 2 colon blog, 3 colon about, 4 colon contact, okay? So we can clean this up even more, right? And I'm gonna do this here. I'm gonna highlight this, and then I'm gonna copy it down here. So the trick that I did with that was just shift option down, all right, the down key, and that can copy lines down. I'm gonna show you another shorthand Pug interpolation syntax, okay? So if we get rid of that equal, this is gonna look similar to your ES6 developers in a way, all right? It'll look a little bit similar. So we got our plus 1, and then we'll do that here. And val. All right, we should get another unordered list that looks exactly the same. And we do. Voila. So there's 2 different ways that you can do that, right? So I'm gonna leave those both in here so you can see them. All right, now let's talk about mix-ins. Reusability is a big deal in programming. We don't want to keep creating the same content over and over. We want to keep your code dry, right? Don't repeat yourself. So mix-ins help us to do just that. We can write reusable code in Pug. So let's get started. So we're going to open our editor back, and we're going to have the file explorer pane, and I'm going to create a new file, but I'm going to do it something a little bit different this time. I'm going to call it hash mixins.pug. Now, why the hash? Okay, the hash is basically going to tell preprocess, so the Pug compiler, that I don't want to generate HTML for this file. And then back in our index, I'm going to import this. So I have everything, I have access to everything. When I include it, I'm going to say include mixins. All right. So now I've got access to everything that mixins produces, okay, which is nothing at the moment, but let's start making it something, okay? So there's a common pattern that I'm always using whenever I'm developing. I'm creating cards. So what we're going to do over here in this mixin file is that we're going to create a card mixin. All right, so I'm going to do mixin card, and I'm going to say image, title, I need info, and then any extra classes that I want to add to the mixin. And then everything beneath here is just going to be basic Pug syntax. All right, so I'm going to create a div with the class card, and then I'm going to add any of the other classes that I passed in. I'm going to do source. All right, so it'll just be image, and then I'll create an H3 for the title, and then for the info I'll create a paragraph. Okay, so now I have access to that inside of my index.pug. So now let's get back over here and start creating some cards. Okay, so I'm gonna go down here to the bottom. I'm gonna say plus. Okay, that lets it know that I'm gonna be using one of my mixins. All right, and I'm gonna pass in the image of nothing, and then we're gonna talk about different types of alligators or crocodile. So crocodile, dwarf crocodile, info, and then I'll do the same thing because I like to do that. Alt shift down. I don't like to rewrite the same thing over and over again. I'm that lazy. Okay, black Cayman. All right, so over here, what do I have? All right, so it's generating some stuff over here as I was saving. All right, created a div with the class card. It dropped in that image. It dropped in my H3 with the title dwarf crocodile, and it did the same thing. It gave me a paragraph with the info in it, and it did the same thing twice. Okay, so I cleaned up my code a significant amount because I didn't have to write this every time, .class, .image, .this. So I would have had to write this every time, right? And that would have gotten pretty ugly if I'm having to do like 8 of them. Even 2 would have been ugly. But we can even make this a lot cooler. We can use for our each loop to create cards based on an array. So I'm gonna keep these 2 here. I was tempted to get rid of them. So I'm gonna do each val in, and it will create a new array of objects. Let's see, we'll give this one, call it name, and then we'll do dwarf crocodile, and we'll create another object with the attribute name, and the last will be black caiman. All right, so we've got our each loop. All right, so for each one of these, what I want to do is I want to create a card with nothing for the image, but with the val dot name. Okay, and let's see what happens. Oh, pretty much the same thing happened. We pretty much got the same thing, except we didn't really do the, do the paragraph tag, but it created everything else with the H3, the dwarf crocodile, and the black caiman. Okay, so we're looking good. And there's still some ways that we can actually clean this up. All right, so if you notice, if you're perceptive, you notice that when I didn't want something here in the card, I would just leave those values off, right? But if it was one of the values that was before something that I needed, I had to send an empty string. But what that does is over here on the right hand side, you see that it still creates all of that markup. Doesn't matter whether it creates, if I don't put in an image, it still creates the image tag. If I don't want the paragraph, it still puts in the paragraph tag. And that's bad form, okay? We don't want to be putting all these extra DOM elements in there and having the browser read all of that stuff, because eventually, I mean, that just slows things down. It may be a minuscule amount, but it still slows things down. And we don't want that, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use conditionals, right? I mean, come on, you got loops and conditionals. This is like real programming here, okay? So let's go back over to our mixin file, and we're going to make some changes, all right? We're gonna put the $ on these over here. All right, there we go. All right, so in our classes, we're gonna say, okay, look, yeah, we want these. We want our classes if we got them. But then if we have an image, then we want to display the image. If we don't have an image, we just want to display like a basic, let's just call it, yeah, we'll do stars equals, we'll just do like, yeah, there you go. We'll just display that. So we'll still have an image, but because probably in your card, you want to make sure that your image is still something. But when if we have the H3, hold on one second. I think I went to a different file. All right, here we go. All right, so we're gonna make this work with that. Oh, and that would break. That's gonna break if I do that. All right, so if we have we're gonna always have a title. But if we don't have, right? If we don't have info, let's not make an info card, or let's not make an info paragraph, okay? Look what happens over to the right when I do that. They got rid of the paragraph tag if we didn't have that information, and because we didn't put an image in any of them, we got the source being, this random, right? That thing right there. All right, so what we can do here now is change our loop up some, and what I'll do is I'm gonna do our little trick again. I want to delete, I don't like having extra code in the place, but I'm not gonna delete it. All right, so I'm gonna create new objects. I'm gonna do the image, and we're gonna call it, if I can type, placeholder.jpeg. All right, so we got our name there. All right, so in this one, we're gonna have no image, and we'll do info is give you more info about the black caiman. All right, so we're not fully done yet. I think I went ahead of myself and saved. We'll do val.image, val.name, val.info. Okay, now let's see what we got. Oh, look at that. Look what happens over here. All right, this is our second set right there. Okay, that's what we're looking at. All right, so we got our class card. We got an image with our placeholder.jpg in there. We got our title, no paragraph tag because we didn't ask for any more info, but we got our image with our default source, and then we got our H3. But this time, because we added a paragraph, now our conditional says, well, go ahead and give me that paragraph. Okay, cool. So conditionals allow us to clean up and get rid of superfluous, right? That's a nice new word for me. All right, superfluous code that's not necessary. We don't want that markup in there. We don't need to just be creating paragraph tags randomly. We don't need to be creating like image tags with nothing in them and broken links. Okay, cool. So that's what conditionals help us to do. So now it's time for you to put those big juicy brains to work. So we're gonna provide you with a challenge. Okay, you get to see what this would actually look like in an actual project. So I'm gonna create a new file here, and it's gonna be called _challenge.html. All right, so I'm gonna open that up, and I'm gonna paste in this challenge. So let me get rid of this. over here on this side. I'm gonna save that. So this is just a basic HTML document. It's not perfect because look what I did. I forgot the doc type and I forgot the head. Oh my. But what it'll allow you to do is to see how you can take this file and turn it into a Pug file that uses, let's say, less than 12 lines of code. There's a way for you to refactor this into Pug that will allow you to take this common section. You'll see here, this is the common section, right? That nav section, right? You want to take this nav and you want to make this an actual mixin. I'm giving you kind of giving you some hints. You can turn this into a mixin that you can actually use to put inside of the header and in the footer. So this is going to stretch your brain a little bit. Actually go onto pugjs.org. You can start looking at some of those things. It gives you an opportunity to research, to find out new things, to stretch what you've learned here, and to start to put it into practice into an actual project, because this is something you'll see often, right? You'll see a nav for the header and the footer, and you're like, well, maybe I could streamline this some kind of way, and Pug can help you to do that. Now there'll be a link in the description with a solution, and you can take a look at that, but I would ask you not to do that prior to actually trying it yourself. One of the best things about classes that you take like this, or little tutorials that you take like this, is when they actually give you a challenge and you go out there and you try to figure it out yourself. You stretch that brain, you take that new information, and you start to try to make those logical connections. Okay, so try it. And if you can't get it, then you go and take a look at the solution. And then when you actually do get it, go and take a look at our solution to see how it matches up, right? See if you were close to what we did. But it doesn't matter as long as it works and as long as you try to do it as efficiently as possible. All right, thanks for taking this Pug Deep Dive with me. I hope that going through this has whet your appetite for taking time to add Pug and Emmet to your workflow. SAS has already gained a lot of traction. I think Pug is actually going to start to gain more traction as people begin to use it more. Pug, along with Emmet, is going to make you feel like a super powered markup writer. Okay, right? So just take some time, do the challenge, go back through the video. And if you actually are more of a reader than you are a visual learner, we've got a link to the article-based version of this video in the description. And again, I want to thank you all for taking this time with us, and we'll see you on our next video series. All right, cool. Peace.